Hello YouTube, this is Darkon633, and continuing off where we left off in the last video, we'll now be taking a look at the 3.75 inch series from The Force Awakens, both the Space and the Forced Assortment. Now, same thing applied to this set in the review, since unfortunately I wasn't able to get a hold of the first release of Kylo Ren, and I really didn't need to get the Endor Luke, since even though I don't own an Endor Luke, I'd rather just get an articulated one on the secondary market. Since it is a part of the original trilogy, I might as well just get the better ones that were released for older characters. But anyways, we'll take a look at the boxes as normal. We'll take a look at the most generic design of the entire wave, and that is the Resistance Trooper. So you can see it's very generic looking. Kind of looks more like a biker really than anything else. Then we also got the First Order, let's see, TIE Fighter pilot, and this actually does well to accompany the one that was released with the TIE Fighter, so now I finally got a hold of 2 TIE Fighter pilots. We'll also take a look at Poe Dameron, which this one kind of fails the most, only because since it doesn't have a removable helmet, the visor also is in a static color, so it's going to look very strange, and it just doesn't really work out too well. And then we'll take a look at Captain Phasma, which is personally the best of the 4 figures shown here. We'll just take a quick look at the box here. It just shows a bio I forgot to mention in the other video, and the way that it combines. And since the other ones pretty much show the same thing, we're going to take a look at the Captain Phasma box to look how the other weapons would have looked like. So anyways, first we'll take a look at the Resistance Trooper. As I mentioned earlier, it's a very generic design, and it does well as a grunt design, but it just really doesn't look all that appealing to me. His head, it's normal, is ball jointed, does have swivels in the shoulders, and single jointed legs, and I'm going to quickly get his weapon since this had dropped. And then we're going to take a look at his weapon, and while it does look very similar to Finn's, it's not quite the same design. So, I guess it's pretty cool. It's just really bland looking. But it does have a really cool Resistance logo, or emblem on the side of his helmet. So, I guess it does have a little merits in that sense. But that's pretty much it for that figure alone. The little piece that it comes with is some kind of weird blaster with multiple handles. And I guess you can kind of give it a little look to kind of just having a weird Gatling gun of some sorts. I don't really know what to call this one either. Some of these build-up pieces are some of the most strangest designs I've seen in a while. But nowhere as bad as the next figure, which we'll see now. First, we'll take a look at the First Order TIE Fighter pilot. Now, unlike the release which I reviewed with the TIE Fighter, this head, although it's still removable like the other figures, doesn't have any head underneath. It's just a single-pieced helmet, and it doesn't have a separate piece to go over it. So this tubing piece is also not removable. So that's the major difference with these figures. He does come with this tiny little blaster, which actually holds pretty well on the figure, which is really nice. But the only problem is that he has nowhere to store it. But, as I showed in the TIE Fighter video, or someone mentioned to me actually in the TIE Fighter video, you can actually store the gun in the top of the vehicle. So, at least there's somewhere to store it. Articulation is a bit hindered due to the tube design, so you're not going to get a whole lot of movement in the head. His shoulders, once again standard, swivel shoulders. This one's a little looser than the other. And the single joints in the legs. So it's going to get a little redundant here. We'll take a look at this, which I really don't know what they were thinking, because what this is supposed to be, according to the instructions, is some kind of weird seat. That's just pathetic, I think. It's really not that thought of whatsoever, and it just looks really goofy. It doesn't help the figure in any way, so we're just going to unplug him and take this off to the side. Next, we're going to take a look at what I think is actually worse than the Resistance Trooper, and that's Poe Dameron, because As a lot of fans have pointed out, he does suffer from the infamous banana visor syndrome and just doesn't look like the character whatsoever. While the suit itself is pretty decently painted and it's got a pretty close design of the character, the helmet is where it fails the most. Because if they at least made it so that it was a clear visor of some sort and kind of painted the eyes underneath of some sort, that would have worked a lot better. But in the current state, it's a pretty bad figure, actually. He does have some really nice painted emblems on his helmet. Even the resistant design up there on the helmet as well. So that's really cool. Same thing with the chest here. And unlike the other figures, he does have a fully functional holster. And it's not just something you plug in or anything. It actually works fully for this very tiny pistol that he comes with. So at least he does have the ability to store it somewhere and actually store it in a more proper manner instead of just plugging the sign on like the Stormtrooper. We're just going to plug this back in. Articulation, as normal, is on a ball joint, which allows movement there. Swivels at the shoulders. And also slightly hindered the articulation of legs due to the tube design. And while this figure is supposed to be made as an X-Wing pilot design, I can see where this will get warped and maybe crack over time, so that could be a bit of a problem. Luckily, the actual X-Wing does contain another version of Poe that actually works with it, so that's, I guess, a cool thing. He comes with this kind of jetpack kind of design. I guess it can be used as a way to fly, I guess, a little higher in the air. It's definitely not the worst looking piece, but it just really doesn't do a whole lot for me. Now, we'll take a look at the best figure in this entire wave, as I mentioned earlier, Captain Phasma. Captain Phasma, while it doesn't have a chrome design at all, it's just a silver paint. It looks really nice, and I think they did a really nice job with the design, and I'm really impressed with it. It'd be nice to see how an articulated 3.75-inch figure will look like, but I'm okay enough with the 6-inch one that I already reviewed, even if the legs are a major problem. She does come with this really interesting looking blaster, which is actually almost a gold color, so it's different than the standard colors of the normal blasters that you see on the Stormtroopers and so on. And she does feature this really nice cape, which is made of a very soft material, so it's not going to get in the way a whole lot, so that's good. Her head is on a ball joint, which has no restrictions, even with the cape, so that's nice. Unfortunately, it does kind of hinder the shoulder movement, but you can kind of move it to the side a bit, so that now you can have it fully articulated, so there is a way to bypass that issue. Same thing with the other shoulder, with no restrictions. And while it does suffer slightly from the 6-inch design, it doesn't hurt it as much, personally, I think. And similar to the other Stormtroopers, you can actually store this on the side of her leg, which, because of the large design, it just doesn't really work too well in storage, so it's better off just keeping it in her hand. So that's pretty much it for the figure there. What she comes with is this weird gear weapon, which is fully functional, but once again, it's just one of those, what I think is just an afterthought kind of deal. Hasbro decided to just give something extra to keep it up to the price when it was, so it's nothing that's really necessary. You can just kind of put it to the side. Same thing which we reviewed in the first wave. We do have enough pieces to form another full weapon of sorts. Now this one actually doesn't look too bad, although it doesn't function as properly as I would like it to if I really cared to be honest. First, what you're going to do is plug this up here, and then I'm going to take this and make sure that these pieces plug into the area there. So now we're going to fully form some kind of little cannon. Now, just as a display piece, I don't think this is the worst looking build-a-piece out there. However, because of the way that it's designed, I guess you can kind of say that you have to hold on to the handles. As you can see, the figure is just way too close to the cannon, so there isn't a way to really use it properly in the way that I think that it was intended for. Otherwise, it could probably just be a automated cannon, which works a lot better personally than anything else of holding it, obviously, since there isn't really any way to hold it in the correct way. But as I mentioned earlier, this really isn't the worst build-up piece out there, although it really isn't that necessary if you don't really care for it. But anyways, that's pretty much it for the space and the forest assortment of the 3.75-inch first wave of the Force Awakens toy line. Now, while these figures are definitely, once again, not the best figures out on the market, they're still pretty decent for what they are, and they're a lot cheaper to get a hold of than spending about $13, $14 for each individual figure as an articulated figure in the Walmart exclusive line. So for those who just want to have a representation of the character or design of a character on their shelf, this is a good way to go for it. And I think the first wave did pretty decent to have some kind of collection to build up for the Force Awakens toy line. So anyways, please comment, subscribe, and check out Hirotaku and the Gideon blog. Also, please check out my Twitter handle under Darkon633. Also, please check down the other channels down below, including the WW Podcast and more. For now, I'll be sitting on YouTube, and may the Force be with you. Bye.